as I mentioned in the last video, example 2 continues on page 2. We will be using the same graph for the remaining questions. So in part B, it asks, are f of 3 and f of -4 positive or negative? All right, I've got a smaller version of the graph up here if you want to refer to that. I did blow it up and put it on an extra piece of paper, so we can probably look at that. So again, if we look at the question, it's asking about f of 3 and f of -4. Okay, so here's our picture. We are interested in f of 3 and f of -4. And if you go back to the question, all it asks, it doesn't want to know the specific value of these things. It's just asking, are the values of f of 3 and f of -4 positive or negative? Okay, so let's take a look. So again, when we look at f of 3, we know this is the y value when x equals 3. Okay, so let's go find where x equals 3. So here, if you look at the axis, the x-axis, the tick marks are placed every 1 unit. So here we go. This is going to be 1, 2, and 3. So here's where x equals 3. If we go up to the corresponding point on the graph, this point right here is f of 3. Okay, that is the y value when x equals 3. Okay, it is not readable. Okay, all we can say, if we look at the y-axis, okay, this y value is somewhere between 3 and 4. We cannot say definitively what it is. It's just some number between 3 and 4. Okay, but again, the question's not asking specifically what f of 3 is. All you have to state is positive or negative. All right, so here is f of 3, like I said, and again, it falls between 3 and 4. It falls between positive 3 and positive 4, okay, because, so that means that f of 3 is going to be positive, okay. This point on the graph is above the x-axis, and remember, any point above the x-axis has a positive y value. Any point below the x-axis has a negative y value. Okay, so always remember that. Let's take a look at f of -4. Okay, so again, the quantity f of -4, this is the y value when x equals -4. So let's go and find, I'll put this one in green. Let's go find where x equals -4. So we've got -1, -2, -3, -4. So here's where x equals -4. We need to find the corresponding point on the blue curve. Okay, so that's going to be right here. So this is f of -4. Okay, this point falls below the x-axis. Okay, so if you look at the y value here, it's almost -1, not quite. So again, you can't read the exact value of -4, but we can tell that this point is going to have a negative y value because it falls below the x-axis. So we're going to write down that f of -4 is negative. Okay, so that's it. That's all you had to do for that one. Okay, so let me go back and fill out the paper here. F of 3 we said was positive, and f of -4 is negative. Okay, if you haven't noticed yet, this was the same deal on example A. I am giving you a hint to solve each problem. Like I said, in question 2, the questions are very random. So if you're going back and studying this, or you're doing your MyLab math homework, you might forget what we talked about. So instead of having to, watch the video over again, maybe the hint will help you out. So each of these parts in example 2 will have a hint to it so that you can go back and refer to how to do these particular problems. All right, let's look at example C now. Okay, so it says, for what values of x is f of x equal to 0? Okay, so again, I'm going to refer to an enlarged copy of the graph here. Okay, so again, let me write the question here. It says, for what values of x is f of x equal to 0. Okay, so let me make sure I copied that down correctly. Yes. Okay, so when you read this question, okay, the first thing you need to realize, okay, be very careful when you read it. For what values of x? Okay, as soon as you read that, you can decipher that your answer will be an x value. Okay, your answer has to be an x value. It could be one x value, it could be more than one, maybe no x value works, but whatever you write down, you have to be talking about an x value. Okay, so what does this x value have to do? Well, we're looking for the x values where f of x is equal to 0. Okay, that's the condition. So let's go over here and talk a little bit about what this statement means, f of x is equal to 0. Okay. Again, we're looking for the x values, okay? So remember, we talked about this before. F of x, another name for it, is y, okay? So you can translate this statement into for what values of x is y equal to 0, okay? Because instead of f of x is the same thing as y. So we're trying to figure out when is y equal to 0. Okay, so let's find where y equals 0. Well, some of these points are called out on the graph. Now, I need you to understand something about this graph, okay? Every point that's in blue is on the curve, okay? So are the points that have black closed circles. The ones with black closed circles are just points that are emphasized, but every single dot that you see in blue, and there's actually infinitely many points if you take decimals and fractions into account, every single point you see in blue is actually on this curve in addition to the ones that have black closed circles on them. I don't want you to think that only the points with black closed circles are the points on this graph. Okay, no, the graph consists of everything in blue plus the black closed circles. Okay, so it's really helpful that these black closed circles are here. We're calling out some specific points, and we can see, for example, that this particular point has a y value of 0. Okay, that's this point. Okay, and then if we keep looking, here's another one. It has a y value of 0, and then we have one more. Okay, you can see that these 3 points that are called out have y coordinates of 0, and look what they have in common. They fall on the x-axis. Okay, doesn't this ring a bell from section 2.1? Okay, section 2.1, what did we learn? Okay, x-intercept. How do you find an x-intercept? You set y equal to 0. Okay, so really this question is asking you for the x-intercepts. Okay, so to answer the question for what value or values of x does the y value equal 0, the answer is going to be these 3 particular x values. -3 and 6 and 10. Okay, these are the x values that have a y value of 0. Okay, so I'm going to return to page 2 here and write down this answer. So x equals -3, I've already forgotten, -3, 6, and 10.